Тимур Абылкасымов, Ляззат Сатиева, Сабыржан Беркимбаев, Владимир Савченко, Анна Пилипенко, Шалкар Жусупов.
Всем добрый день, уважаемые.
So good afternoon, dearest colleagues. I would like to greet you all to this session. Let me congratulate you once again with the day of the national currency. And that's a great day today. And I would like to thank the Association of Financiers and the topic that has been proposed. So actually, we're going to be talking about behavior-based supervision and consumer trust, and let us talk about building the trust, because the trust is the new type of an asset. You don't have to just engage the client, you have to keep him or her engaged and retained. Because of the growing competitiveness, the retention strategies will get expanded. We talked a lot about the digital technologies and the transformation within the banking sector. So in order to have the banking sector not just to have enough liquidity, one of the provisions of the new law is a novel that has to do with the behavior-based supervision. Let me demonstrate a retrospective analysis of what we talk about while it comes to discuss the behavior-based supervision. Actually, the new law on banking sector has been announced, so we've been piloting some of the practices. And I'd like to say that the modern regulation provides the classical way of dealing with the clients. So we want the banks to have enough liquidity. We don't want to have any issues with NLPs, and the growth and digitalization led to the fact that the client do not realize once they apply for a product, they don't realize that they're not going to be paid back. So actually we need to introduce the behavior-based supervision. So actually the just attitude towards the financial services. So while getting the services, the clients are to realize the risks that is coming together. So actually in Kazakhstan, our intention is to build the behavior-based supervision that is going to be comparable to the traditional ones. So let me talk about the best practices. So drafting the law, we were exposed to OECD practices and experience of authorities. For instance, the team of the agency had studied towards different regulators, and since 2011, the attention to that topic grew. And that's a transition to the mature system of supervision. So the standards were updated, and the codes don't just protect the interest of the clients, but also ensuring the regulator that the clients do understand the essence of the financial products they receive. And one of the key dimensions while drafting the law and the way we see behavior-based supervision is G20 standards. So in addition to the regulatory framework, the one that they have in the UK, there's good models called Twin Peaks, where two regulators are separated. For instance, this is a practice of the United Kingdom, Australia, and some of the other countries. So actually, having studied our best practices, we realized that it's a high time for us to have clear standards for the market and to have legal framework developed, the one that we're drafting together with the second-tier banks. So you could see the 12 principles. So number one is legal framework, legs and regs, and some of the elements of behavior-based supervision is used in Kazakhstan. This is what we call protection of the rights of humans. For instance, the maximum interest rate. So there is a prohibition for small swifts, for small labels and layout of the fonts. And actually, we had. And this is done in order to make sure that we do have the mature model. And we have to follow those principles while ensuring the supervision. And the last slide is devoted to the dimensions that we're going to be working in. So the requirements towards the product, the full cycle of the product from the design through the post-sales and escalation when the product needs to go through the changes. So this is something that we're going to be reflecting in the legal framework, and we will discuss those items with the market actors. So actually this is going to be a supervision model similar to the models that we already use. And for instance, the so-called period of coldness, is going to be reflected there. So in fact, the banks have done a lot in order to retain the clients and provide care for the clients. And I wanted to talk to the speakers representing the banks. So let's talk about what's essential for us as for the regulator to ensure the supervision based on a balanced approach. We cannot just protect the interests of the client, because banks also do provide the loans, and they anticipate that the loan is going to be returned. So there has to be the underwriting guaranteeing a possibility not just to pay back, but a desirable payback. So I drafted the questions that I'm going to be posing to the bankers. So we had the reps of the 5 banks, and it will be more interesting for us to find out more about your best practices and the way you construct your tactics. So these banks have the departments aiming at protecting the interests of their clients, and this is something that we will talk about. So the first question is for the clients from Halyk Bank. So digitalization has simplified the access towards the financial services, and sometimes it's just arranged very seamlessly. Halyk is a large ecosystem where you could purchase a commodity, postponing the payment or purchase the air tickets. So what do you do in order to have the client understand what risks associated with the financial product, in order to make sure that the profit is all he or she thinks about, but also they shouldn't be forgetting about the risks? Thank you for your question. Good afternoon. I would like to congratulate you all with the professional holiday. Well, yes, indeed. Looking at the digitalization share and simplification of the client's experience, this is something that is happening in almost every single financial organization. And what we deal with is less number of clicks when the client is able of having a service just clicking twice or 3 times. But at the same time, in order to ensure a good care about the client, in order to make sure that there is a full understanding of the service he or she receives from the bank, and the care, I'd say, care from the bank about the client, while during the interaction, while we have to ensure and actually, in fact, the first principle is maximum transparency. While the client gets exposed to the description of the product, he or she knows about the time frame. If it's a loan, then he is aware about the interest rate, and thanks to the calculators, there could be estimations made and computations. And should it be a loan in a certain amount, the calculator could give the heads up in regards to what the end payment is going to be. So in parallel, for instance, based on frequently asked questions, we do have the FAQs, and along with those frequently asked questions, there's an instruction for the client, so enabling him to make a balanced decision. So the second tip is before even selecting a bank, a client is to see the full spectrum of the products and the line of products. So while working with the mobile networks and applications, there's also recommendations and the client's experience interpreted into the digital platform, briefing the client about the information. The next item is a hybrid communications model. And sometimes client has specific issues. And in some cases, the client doesn't get the answers, and there could be a message or contacting the operator, and there's an access to the full service. So it's very important to mention about the behavior-based supervision and an interest aimed at protecting the interests of the clients. So this is one of the major issues addressed by the behavior-based supervision. So providing the full information about the products, we are ready to ensure the protection for the client by doing the following. We study the behavior of the client. We receive the information in regards to the client, and what we see is the behavioral model. And the communication with the bank may lead actually to the different intentions, and this helps the client to select the best product and the best conditions for the client. And the care is something that we address. We have to counter fraud. We have to ensure full safety, and social engineering lead the clients to the branch offices of the bank, and they have zero understanding sometimes about the products, and in 99% of cases for external impact is something that we can protect the client from. However, social engineering is still an exception, and for the last for the upcoming couple of years, the bank is incapable of ensuring full protection from the social engineering brainwashing techniques, and the hopes that the client has in regards to interacting with the bank shouldn't lead to any losses of funds. And we spent considerable number of time when we would raise awareness about our products. We would have many training courses. We have video clips helping an individual to have enhanced financial literacy. So we hope that the behavior-based supervision would be introduced step by step, but yes, indeed, we do have the department dealing with the analyzing the client's experience, and the department looks at the complaints. The department corrects the client's experience and gives the tips to the clients. So we hope that in the upcoming future, the models that we're going to be designing all together at the second-tier banks level and better financial literacy will allow us to have behavior based on the reasonable conclusions at the system that will build trust in the future. Thank you. You mentioned about the stage-by-stage introduction. Yes, the financial institutions is something that introduces the practice as a result of the exercising, and we have started with establishing the departments responsible for behavior-based supervision, and we have data in regards to the complaints coming from the clients, and you shouldn't be having an impression that we adopted the law and the very next day we will demand compliance. So, Sajan, the question is for you. The agency conducts interviews on a regular basis to include the STRAP interview. So while drafting the law, we discussed what model is to be used for this behavior-based supervision, and a very nice approach was used. In your case, you analyzed BS, you scan and pilot the projects. Could you tell us more about the experience of Kaspi Bank, and what do you see that has to be done in risk management and behavior patterns? Thank you, and I would like to congratulate you all with the upcoming holiday, the day of the national currency, and wish you have success, and all of you in Davis. Thank you so much for your question. Indeed, behavior-based supervision for us is a timely decision. And for a long time in a row, we've been using different analysis in regards to client satisfaction. And, you know, clients don't come to us from out of nowhere. Every single client would approach us based on how we see the client's experience. You know, it's important to understand how satisfied the client is. For instance, Kaspi Gold is a standard of performance, and going in depth, you know, this is the third or the fourth iteration of the product that was acknowledged by the marketplace, you know, and this is the consequence of huge efforts in regards to the back office support, you know, what worked well, what satisfied the client, what did not satisfy the client, you know, and as a result we would have the new products and new dimensions in business like Kaspi business. You know, we could talk separately about that. But anyway, it's important to measure how satisfied the client is in regards to the questions. So when the client poses a question, when he or she poses a question, whether he or she has asked for something or no, the whole experience is impacted by this fact, you know. So NPS is the integral part. So that's a net promoting score, and the essence of that abbreviation. If you are a Kaspi's client, you might be getting the questions of that nature. Would you recommend the product to your friends? For instance, you know, the scores is from 0 to 10, you know, a simple scoring scale. And in case if we would not have a good evaluation, then we would ask a question, what is to be enhanced? And there are lots of theories, lots of practices in regards to how to pose a question in the right way to find out about the essence. You know, NPS is a tool, the instrument, and we have it used by the service dealing with the clients and partners, you know. So this enables us to understand what satisfies and dissatisfies the clients. You know, some products actually were eliminated by Kaspi. You know, we would launch them and then close them out because of the MBA ratings. So in this regard, behavior-based supervision is a consequence to the market's reaction, so, why the competitors don't do whatever we do and the regulator keeps silence. And perhaps because there was no behavior-based supervision. So we are happy to have behavior-based supervision finally within the perimeter of the regulator's activity. In some countries of the world, those are the two different directions of business. And until 2018, the committee dealing with the protection of the rights of consumers of the financial services. So before 2016, it was merged with the agency. But actually, the first attempts were around, having two-paged description of the client's experience. A4 doesn't make any sense. It has to fit the screen of the telephone. And again, thanks to the productive and open position of the Agency for Financial Monitoring, we harmonize the practice, and now we concentrate on the behavior-based supervision. We have to realize how the things are to work, right? You don't have to just be able to measure it, but there has to be basic metrics. So we use CSR, for instance. So that's customer satisfaction index, and that's a standalone instruments that are used in addition. And in fact, the parameters as they are, or the metrics, shouldn't be the objectives. They're just reflecting the reality. We need to change the fundamentals. And in the supervision, what we expect is just the same, so the figures or indicators should be taken into account as thresholds. However, for the behavior-based supervision, we need to understand what we compare the indicators with. And you have to compare all actors of the market. It's important to understand where the market's position is in general, and it's important as we have to understand where to move forward. Yes, the tendency is that every single bank is to compete with itself of yesterday. But again, once we launched the QR, we understood what standards are to be complied with. And just imagine some of the banks that will become the part of the general QR, whether the bank is having the fiscal checks, this is going to lead to the downgrade of the market, right? And from the agency and national bank standpoint, the product wouldn't be that great. And actually, it has to be clear for every single actor of the market. And again, we're talking about too large of the spectrum of the actors engaged, so completing, I'd like to say that yes, indeed, we think that the Agency for Financial Monitoring is on a right way forward, and soon we will design those metrics, and we will come to a harmonized practice in the interests of the clients and the citizens of all of the countries who will be engaged and concerned. Thank you. That's a great comment. Yes, indeed, we do have disputes from time to time, and while drifting the law on banking sector, and we were talking about behavior-based supervision, we had banks saying that we have a good care about clients, we have advanced practices, and we would say, stop competing with the others, start competing with yourselves as of yesterday. So our message was that the banks will need to enhance and facilitate their practices. So in regards to the metrics, we started drafting the evaluation system for the model, and it's not going to be comprised of quantity but quality-based parameters. And in 2024 we published the expectations, and it clearly stated what we expect from the market within the framework of the supervision model, and the same approach is going to be used in this case. and we will use the similar publications. Again, I will reiterate that it's going to be the mix of metrics and the banking culture, how you make the decisions, how you escalate them. So actually we want the financial organizations, to make sure that if the product is not available for the client, to have internal banking system or protection system disabling the product. And again, starting off the dialogue about the culture, I'd like to ask Bank Anna, could you please brief us about setting up a culture within the bank? We've been interviewing bankers a lot, to include Forte, and we would like to understand how it works in your case, and perhaps you have some demotivating KPIs in order for the products to be promoted aggressively. If the individual doesn't want something, what do you do in order to not have it? Thank you very much for your question. I cannot but congratulate the colleagues with the Day of Financier. And the topic of today's panel discussion is something that correlates with the national currency of Kazakhstan. Stability of the national currency is not about the stability of the foreign exchange. It's about the trust that we, the financiers, create. And on a daily basis, what we do is we pass this exam for resilience, be it making the decisions, resilience, and the trust is something that we built together with the regulators and thanks to the behavior-based supervision. So for Forte, behavior-based supervision is not the requirement of the regulator. Before there were amendments done into the legal framework, for a couple of years in a row, we made conduct risk management in our daily practice. So what we did, we excluded the KPIs that stimulate or motivate sales without clarifying the needs of the clients. And on the contrary, we included such metrics as a share of secondary applications, the level of client satisfaction measuring after the complaint. And after each and every complaint, what we do is we make a telephone call again to find out whether the issue was sorted out or not, and how correctly. So we also had the metrics to assess our sales personnel members, and while having internal investigations, such metrics as correct communications, transparency of recommendations, and ethical conduct, because clients could be different and situations may be very complex. And the third dimension, which is really important, is the training process and practice of trustworthy sales. And we have modules in ethics, we have modules in conflict of interests management and high quality of interaction with clients. 2024 was the year of designing push to services, and we paid our attention to, and our intention was to enhance the quality of service. And all front office employees have completed this program. And actually the trust building is not just a norm, that's about the culture of having a long-run attitude. It's important for us to have long-term interaction with the client rather than one-time profit for the bank. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. And actually, I'm just picking up all of the practices, and whatever we've been discussing is going to become a part of our legal framework, because we've started different tactics, and we looked at the documents of our colleagues from the banking sector so that we could understand the essence of those practical decisions. So the make sure those best practices is going to be the way we view the future forward. You talked about a sales channel, so Lazat, the question is for you. Your bank became one of the pioneers dealing with automobile dealers. And how do you control compliance to ethical principles and not having the aggressive promotion? Good afternoon. I'd like to congratulate you with the holiday. Yes, Timur, thank you so much for your question. Yes, indeed. Our bank became one of the first ones to develop and design large-scale sales, and with the retail business as well. Yes, we have to control not only our own managers, but also our partners. The automobile dealer centers, we used to be having clients in appliances stores and so on. So we have to have a good engineering of the product and the objectives for the product, and what metrics will be used for funding. And next is working with the sales network. So while onboarding different partners into the overall professional network, what we do is we study their practice, and we cannot take one single automobile dealer that has popped up a couple of days ago at the market, and it's impossible for that entity to become our partner because they don't have the background. And there's onboarding requirements before we provide the credit lines and unveil our products. And while working with the partner, when we had the results of sales, we have comprehensive measures that could be referred to NPS, and NPS, as of today, is one of the most considerable part of the supervision, behavior-based supervision. That could be the instrument to be used in this dimension. And when we issue a loan, then we call the client back to get the feedback, and it has to do not only with the product. And if the client has received a loan and he or she is satisfied, what we'll look at is how the client is satisfied with the quality of the service. So, were there any additional services or any complaints? And we have customized calls to those clients who decided not to use our services, as they could tell us about what they didn't like in their experience. And actually, this is a great value for us because we keep enhancing our practices while working with their opinion. And I would like to touch upon a very interesting topic in regards to additional services. Well, in fact, I think that you are all aware about the fact, and my colleagues won't let me lie, we use a 360-degree approach towards the client. We want to maximize the needs and demands of a client. There's a fragile trigger. You may impose an additional service, or you could have truly the product the client needs. Sometimes we criticized by the agency, because we provide loans to purchase a vehicle. We think that that's a civilized way. You have to be responsible for those who participate in the traffic and for those who are committed to collaterals. And actually, there's a very fragile edge, who our partner is, how to sell the product, how to sell the service, and then we need to generate a profit from the business. Talking about the instruments, again, it's all about the MPS, calling back, getting feedback from the automobile dealers. And in fact, the market has changed drastically. And we have a lot of loans provided thanks to the brokerage network. And we are introduced by other colleagues. It's up to the client to make a decision. And we deal with the complaints as well. And there's two independent sources of us having a feedback. Of course, when the client gets a loan, there's euphoria. But Timur mentioned about not using the product. For instance, while being serviced, there could be some complaints coming up. And again, this is a very important element of the feedback. This is something that we implement while improving our credit processes and designing the new tools and instruments. Thank you. In regards to complaints, so through EUTNIsh, we have an exposure to all of the complaints in regards to the financial market. And what we do is we transfer that data over to the parties concerned. So we actually split the categories of the banks. So Eurasian is one of the banks that has modified the design of the product. So we become your free of charge consultants to enhance the satisfaction of your customers. Yes, we wish to have less complaints. Yes, indeed. It's not the competence of your department that you share. So we have received 134,000 complaints this year, and we're going to be a consulting service, providing the tips. Okay, so that bank needs to be enhancing the practice and the following techniques, for instance. So we have listened to good best practices, and non-standard approach was something that we have seen. And just lately, we have a new bank established from microloan organizations. So KMF used to be dealing with SMEs traditionally, for those especially clients living in the remote areas of Kazakhstan. And the products that were established by KMF actually attracted our attention. So you were interested in not engaging the client, but also to ensure the client to be with you for a long period of time and have a increased value. So, Shalkar, the question is for you. Could you tell us about your interest in the tools and the ideas, the way you generated them? I'm happy that, I contribute to the Congress of the Financiers, a representative of the banking sector, and I find myself in one row with the representatives of the large banks, and that's a great pride for me to share this stage and talk with you about the novels happening in our business. So, dear friends, dear colleagues, I would like to congratulate you with the day of the national currency. Let our currency be sustainable and resilient, and I would like to wish you success in all of your endeavors. Let your friends be healthy and wealthy, be prosperous, and enjoy a good life. I don't know, perhaps for many of you it is going to be a breakthrough idea, but back in 2013, the World Bank has developed the principles to protect the clients in micro loan business, and many colleagues didn't know about that initiative. Back in 2013, what we did, we introduced those principles. Back then, there's 7 principles. It includes overestimated debt, good practice in pricing, development of good commodities and products, and so on. So those principles are listed and are available. So in 2013, we started introducing those principles into our operations, and I'll tell you more. The leading micro loan organizations were modified, and we have double A minors. And that was an assessment given to us back in 2019. And that year, in particular, we established the department that deals with the behavior and attitude of the clients. And it is targeting, protecting the interests of the clients. So any innovation is impossible without going through the coordination with that department in particular. So the initiative that the regulator has envisaged under the framework of the new draft or the new law on banking sector is something that is done in a timely manner, and I have high hopes that is going to lead to forming a new culture between the customers and the suppliers. It's going to result in the culture of trust, transparency, and not only something that is aimed at maximizing the profit. So going back to protecting the rights of the clients through the prism of the digital era, you know, a lot could be listed, and the best practices also followed by KMF as well. And soon we will launch the digital sandbox comprised of new digital products in order to detect the issue at the very early stage, not when it becomes too gross. And adequate advertisement strategy, data-driven approach, and the sales spin. I mean, everything matters, and this is something that everybody does. That's the best practice. Could I ask you a brief question so that the clients would pay you better? Online vet, what is it? So 66% of our clients live in rural areas, and rural areas plus the remote areas located throughout Kazakhstan. And we've been established 28 plus years ago, and we study the needs of the clients. And one of the needs that we had was that those living in the rural areas, our clients actually, they are to be exposed to the adequate assessment done by KMF. And again, going back to your question, some time ago we introduced a new function, is to have online medicine available for our clients. So the consultations are available, and for rural area that's a unique practice, and actually we promoted that practice. And we also have the online vet services. You know that many farmers deal with animal breeding and cattle stock health is a great issue for them, you know, of our clients. And sometimes you need to use evidence-based practice in regards to providing food, treatment to the animals. So actually online vet is the tool that we have launched. So following the healthcare and telemedicine practice, now we had the veterinary services for animal breeders. And for the 7th year in a row, we sponsored the agricultural forum, and the most recent one was conducted in Taldykurgan, and they looked at specifics of planting beetroot and corn. And our clients actually received high-quality answers to their questions from PhDs and the leaders in science. Thank you very much. Colleagues, we have almost 6 minutes, so let's look at the major areas. So very quickly, how behavior-based supervision is to be designed. So Lezat, the floor is yours. So generally speaking, as it was said by my colleagues, for some time in a row, we have the components of behavior-based supervision, and we agreed to having the standalone vertical. And the key message would be, so the supervision as a word was all about trust, but again, trust is fainted away. But the supervision is an idea leading to making sure that the banking system is mature enough to have no necessity in supervising or being supervised, and you follow your intuition and do the things right. And the second item that I would like to mention is, of course, very important for today, and that's painful for many of our clients. It is really essential to ensure the supervision over the banks only. We have to watch the behavior of the clients. We shouldn't be just putting the banks into the boxes. And I will follow the message of my colleague from Halik. We shouldn't be having those taking loans for the sake of taking loans. So continuing the idea, yes, indeed, a very important component is something that you have to do not in the benefit of the bank. Sorry. We should be thinking about the clients. We are to have an institute of ombudsman, and indeed, every single bank is to communicate with their own clients. And if the public institution acts as a partner and you process those complaints, then something is going wrongly. And there has to be an institution of ombudsman. That's really important from the supervision standpoint, because the banks communicate with the clients, and the regulator within the behavior-based supervision is to watch over the general balance of the system. And it's not quite right, when the regulator executing the authority would have a mix of picking up a phone and giving the instructions or directions, let's deal with the client. Many bankers understand what I'm talking about. So actually, that's a manual tool of managing the situation. Well, it's not quite right to escalate the conflict to this level. We gotta have a balanced system to be comprised of banks, ombudsman, the tools to find solutions for such disputes. It could be, the collective, collegial regulation, or correct instruments to be used while dealing with inexpediency, for instance. So what we expect is that the supervision is going to look like as a system where the regulator sets the standards and watches over the lack of discrepancies. Could I have this last slide on the screen so that everyone understands? So Sabirjan mentioned about three-level model, ensuring to have clients going to the bank, then the institution of ombudsman, and then to the agency. So actually, the entire service of the ombudsman, it's point number 11 and 10 under the new law on banking sector. So Vladimir, the floor is yours. Well, I'll be brief. Since Kazakhstan gained its independence, the bank's motto was "Everything is for the client." So supervision, from a legal standpoint, sounds harshly, but the desire of the regulator is not to break something that is working perfectly well. Every single bank is taking care of their clients, and it's important for the interaction to be as fruitful and be of assistance and used to enhance our interaction with the client and generate zero problems whatsoever. So after the law is adopted by the lower house of the parliament, is going to make the client's experience even better, and the banks shouldn't be considered as a structure of some imaginary institution that is observing over whatever is going on with the client. We need to have the client for the rest of his or her life. Yes, indeed, the behavior-based supervision is something that gets reflected in the numerous drafts, and we will eventually have the final draft, because every single amendment turns out to be the new corrections made to the law. Well, I like the idea Madam Abulkasimova told about the proportional supervision is the approach that we could use for behavior-based supervision, while the banks would have the best practices and they would be exposed to the simplified regulations, so-called or the expedited. And those banks who have just started using the behavior-based metrics and cultures would be supported by the regulator. And what I would like to support actually is the idea said by Lazat. Sometimes we become the victims of our clients, and we deal with lots of complaints, lots of appeals. And in that situation, what we ask from the regulators to have the behavioral labs, so that we could look at the general cases, so that we could respond adequately on how to construct the products, how to respond to the complaints, in order to defend the position of the bank and actually make sure that the client is decent and reasonable. Thank you. Shalkar? I don't have much time left, and I would like to have the regulator not to have the baby drown while washing a baby, And at KMF, our principle is to have, that phrase, client is always right, to be a prerogative, Sometimes clients may not be correct, but we have to, base our activities on the principle that he or she is right anyway, under any circumstances. Thank you. Thank you so much, dearest colleagues, for addressing all of the issues in a timely manner. And indeed, proportional regulation is risk-oriented, and the level of supervision is not indifferent. We're going to be having a customized approach to every single bank separately. So all of you would be able to have the experience to share. I would like the public at large to understand that the banks do a lot in order to seek for the protection of the rights of the clients. This is done not only to not lose money, but also to have the services, to have better products and better experience in clients. And as regulators, we will ensure the balance, and we will try to do our best in order to have a harmonized approach. So you expressed a nice idea, Anna, in regards to behavioral labs. Yes, indeed. Perhaps we need to have more open conferences in product design, and by doing so, we would be exposed to different experience exchange, so that the banks could see that the regulator doesn't want to have the system, the agencies to interfere, but you also have your own lines of protection, and that you are mature enough without any interference from the regulator, able to take care of your clients. Thank you so much for such an extensive presentation. Thank you, Timur. Azamat Julduzbekov, I will ask you, as a client out of 5 represented here, so the just competition issue. So my question is for Sabarjan. Why transfers from Kaspi, Halyk, and the transfers back from Kaspi to those banks cost thousands of tenges? How much do they cost? A couple of thousands of tenge. So to transfer your money from Kaspi to other banks, as far as I'm concerned, So it's not about the behavior-based supervision, This is the behavior not only of the clients, but the behavior of the banks as well, Because you're sitting all together, but in fact, you have different grading and grading, right? Demonstrate different attitude towards each other. Okay. In fact, we have the proposal for the clients who receive salaries through Kaspi. Now I have lower tariffs. How this looks like in different banks, I cannot respond, but looking at the economics, I'd like to say that Kaspi transfers large sums. Let's talk about economics, right? You know what the mean size of the transfer is from the bank to the bank, and the banks who had the fixed fee in the amount of 200 tenge, they make much more than us setting other commission rate. It's important to understand the common balance of interests. Once you have the fixed cost, you have certain size. But why are you interested in that part? Why are you not interested? You are a client of these banks, right? And those banks impose absolute limits. You may not transfer more than certain amount just because there's a physical limit, right? You are not concerned about that question. But if you use that limit and the amount that you transfer towards the limit in a percentage from each and every transfer, they make much more than Kaspi. You are paying physically for each and every transfer more, but if you try to transfer that amount from your bank to us, then you will pay more. Let's calculate. So couple of thousands tenge, let's take your reference. Let's make our computations, I don't mind. The mic is not used, interpretation is not possible, thank you.
Я думаю, нужно вспомнить.
I think we need to go back to the open banking. We are not positioning ourselves as a bank for the poor people. Perhaps you have lots of money, but what we try to do is to have the large spectrum of services, and Kaspi has the maximum number of free services and the number of transactions. You could make transfers using the number of telephones, absolutely free. This is what we did. We created it all free of charge, and this is happening on purpose, as you can. I understand that there's some jealousy, based on the previous practice, but, that's grounded on reasonable justification. So what was the amount of your transfer if it would cost you a couple of thousands of tenges? So we have the maximum amount there, It's not a couple of thousands of tenge, I can assure you. So Azamat, if you are the representative of microloan business, I would ask you to join KMF Bank. It's not a micro business, I assume. Good. So actually, we follow our beloved clients, so please join the salary project and you will have commissions. Thank you. Colleagues, thanks a lot. And again, congratulate you with the Day of the National Currency and enjoy. Thanks.
Шолпан Айнабаева,
Мария Хаджиева, Адиль Мухамеджанов, Сергей Лукьянов, Едель Медеу, Фархат Ахонов, Тимур Салимов.
Құрметті қаржыгер
Dear financiers and the participants to the Congress, dearest colleagues, I would like to congratulate you with the Day of the National Currency. I would like to congratulate you all full-heartedly, and this is indeed a professional holiday. And today we've gathered here in order to have a discussion around a very interesting topic, which is digital assets and the assets that exist for the capital markets. Digital assets have been used and utilized very largely, and we are going through the revolution of traditional investment banking thanks to using blockchain and digital assets. And lately, tokenization of financial instruments, bonds, and funds, this is something that has been entering the market, and actually this expands traditional capital markets products. And actually it's essential for us to be familiar about the processes ongoing. So we have faced the following, once we used to be dealing with the national financial flows, there were a lot of non-regulated processes such as ICOs, and losses that were imposed on the markets as a result of untrustworthy actions both of issuers and other players of the market. Now the time dictates us to deal with the new conditions, and now security token offering is something that has the wide spectrum of opportunities being provided by ICO, but at the same time, it is as reliable and as transparent as any traditional listing would provide. And now we are at this stage of new market being formed. The digital market is still small compared to the traditional market. And again, based on the presentations that we were exposed to during the first plenary session, it has been formed at the moment. However, digital bonds could actually transform the debt instruments. How? The growth is really essential, and indeed, many sources, and there were references to Forbes, Moody's, and the reports as of 2023 have mentioned about the fact, as well as many other sources of information specializing in the future tendencies. What they forecast is the growth of digital assets at the level of not less than 50% per year. That's a young market, however, the market which is being aggressively developed, and as the representatives of the traditional market, we have to make sure that we do have the seamless integration of that new reality into the traditional procedures. And here comes the slide saying that in accordance with the assessment provided by the experts, the growth is forecasted at the level of 50% at least per year. And at the same time, The experts think that by 2030, the growth of industry in tokenization is going to grow 50-fold. So why do we need tokenization? And the tokenization in securities, in fact, does have a great potential. You can tokenize anything. The law that was adopted on the 5th of November by the lower chamber of the parliament, and it is going to lead to amendments to be made to the law on digital assets. This is something that is going to be providing new definitions that we're going to be utilizing in the future. And here comes the question: why do we need tokens? What does tokenization provide? We have to realize that the benefits generated by the model tools, such as global liquidity, is something that we will get exposed to. So while being listed at the crypto exchanges, we will have a limitless cycle of clients. Unlimited with the country the listing could provide you in a traditional way. So trade in tokens is possible 24/7, 375 days a year. There is no constraints and references in regards to trading. It's cost-effective and prompt actions as those platforms work very effectively because they process immediately large massive of data, and computations are made in real time as all of the transactions get concluded using the blockchain-based platforms, and those are the transactions that are immediately becoming liquid, valid. And we have introduced you to some of the aspects in all three major dimensions. So the first one is traditional listing. What we realize is that it provides us with the regulation and QIC procedures and anti-fraud options, and there's a very clear understanding of how the issuer's commitment looks like, and this also provides for rights of the investor. However, what it's lacking is that the traditional work schedules, there's no 24/7 training, there's no B2B between the individuals, and liquidity is limited with the platforms used for circulation. And the known ICO national coin offering is a tendency of the time when cryptocurrency has just emerged, and it was similar to IPO, but in digital space. However, ICO, in fact, is something that has a negative connotation. Why? Because those were the non-regulated relationships, and they were not subject to any audits in regards to compliance to any constraints imposed by the market. There were no commitments imposed for the issuers, and there were no rights of the investors envisaged. And at the same time, it was pretty dynamic and accessible instrument for a large circle of entities, and therefore those tools were used before the defaults started popping up. And lately, there was such a sentence as security token offering, and in fact, it is a combination of both the benefits of the traditional listing and the opportunities provided by the digital listing. And we think that behind these operations and transactions, behind the innovations, in fact, what we have is the reasoning for such innovations. And we're going to be talking about a very essential topic, whether it is going to be expedient to operate seamlessly with these new processes and how we could integrate them into the traditional market. So I introduced you to the digital assets on purpose, and now allow me please to introduce the participants to the discussion. We had the representatives of very interesting entities. So we have Maria Hadjieva, Deputy Chairman of the Agency for Regulating and Monitoring of the Financial Market. And we also have Adil Muhamedjanov, who is the chair of Kazakhstani Exchange. Едel Medeo, Central Depository of Kazakhstan. And I will ask the questions enabling us to understand the readiness for a change and a readiness to change our infrastructure and legal framework. And I will then introduce the participants to the market, the leaders of the market, traditional leaders. And we have Sergei Lukyanenko, the chief of Freedom Finance, Farhat Akhonov, chair Halyk Finance, and Timur Salimov, chair Alatar City Invest. Taking into account the objectives of the discussion, let's talk about the preparedness of the market infrastructure. So I'd like to find out how ready our institutes are in order to operate the markets. And let me start with the regulator. So Kazakhstan has introduced a definition for digital assets by the laws of 2023, and the amendments were made lately in the beginning of November of this year. And in fact, they have considerably changed the format for many terms that used to be presented from a theoretical prism. Could you please tell us what amendments in regulating digital assets are essential to ensure a seamless integration into the traditional system, especially tokenization of securities? So to start with, I'd like to congratulate you all and the financial prosperity to you and financial prosperity to your families and to our country. So actually today's topic is pretty hot. Why? As digitalization of the securities is a revolution in regards to the securities market. And it could be compared to popping up of the electronic sales. And within the framework of the law that has been considered by the Majlis of the Parliament and the law that has gone through the first hearing, and there were amendments made into the different legal and laws and sub-laws to include the legal framework regulating financial assets. For instance, there were amendments made in regards to 3 types of digital assets. Once setting the requirements for money and financial instruments issued in a digital form. So our position as a regulator is based on the international practice. And the recommendations that were used by UNESCO, UNECO in Singapore, the United States, and other countries. So same risk, same regulation. This is the major principle and position. So actually, the same risk, the same regulation, and it's not important whether the property right is regulated and fixed in a register. The market players are to realize their rights that they get together with the financial asset, and it exists since 1947 when the Supreme Court of the United States fixed the terms for the financial regulation. It's test Howey. I think that many of you have heard about this, and there are 4 factors that identify the financial asset as a securities or any other asset as a financial asset, so investment of money, so the transfer of value. The next is investment into the common enterprise with the and the next is the consumption. And those factors actually identify any asset as a financial asset. And if the tokenized asset actually reflects those factors, it is considered as a financial asset. Actually, if it is identified as a shared securities, then it is the token, which is a financial asset. And regulating financial digital assets is stipulated on a basic principle, which is reflected in mirroring through the digital assets. And actually, the assets, the obligations of the investor and the right to commit to the meetings is ensured, so the owner of the token receives the same rights as the shareholder, and at the same time it gets acknowledged by the central depository. So the concept is based on the fact that we don't want to jeopardize the existing system of acknowledgement for property and ownership in Kazakhstan. The operator of the account, the central depository, is to confirm the right of ownership for the owner of the digital asset. And this is going to deal with the major issue, which is typical for the decentralized systems. And the question is risk disputes and the acknowledgement of the ownership rights. And we're going to be having seamless institutional integration into the financial system in Kazakhstan. The National Bank will be keeping the register of the operators for digital assets, and at the same time it is going to be regulating and controlling the operators of platforms for the other subjects of the financial market by setting technological requirements towards the activity. And in turn, the Agency for Financial Regulating will identify the procedures for issuing digital assets and will develop the list of basic digital assets being turned over in Kazakhstan. The operator of the platform will identify the rights ensuring access to the digital platform to be used to turn the digital assets. The exchange is going to become a part of the infrastructure for the digital assets, and it will remain unchanged, and it will act as a trading platform which will enable institutional investors, banks and brokers to deal with the digital assets in a traditional regulated environment, taking the same approach towards the computations and estimations as it would be done in regards to traditional assets. Of course, the data that were mentioned in the previous presentation made by Shulpan will be still in force, and the speed of operations, the time. Please leave the last slide with security token offering. Yes, it's really essential information for all of us. So actually, by doing so, within the draft law, we fixed the presence of tokenized securities. And there's a new cluster of financial instruments with the chance for placement in tenge, with the chance to use, I will repeat myself, the current approach towards the trading and computations. And I would also like to add more. This doesn't mean that the current regulation system with all complexities is going to be translated for the digital assets. I would like to calm the audience down. As it was said before, during the plenary session, we will revise the securities legal framework overall, and together with international experts, we anticipate to have the new law on securities market and do whatever possible in order to minimize the current complexities. And this means that we don't have any intentions to disseminate detailed regulation for digital assets, and we would like to have a mix of regulations enabling us to cover the entire securities market, to include traditional one and make it more flexible. And this will enable us to have more securities turned in at this market and make the market more technology-based. So you anticipate to have the hybrid models for regulation that are going to be applied, such as proportional supervision, the different levels for different assets. Do you have any vision in regards to licensing the participants to the market? Is there going to be any need to have additional licenses issues? Will you adapt or accept the licenses good for other jurisdictions such as AIFC? Well, we believe that there's no need for the actors to apply for additional licenses. As I've said to you before, we want the Central Depository and Kazakhstani exchange to become an integral part of the digital market overall. The only aspect is that the national bank will need to be registered by the national bank, and the operators of the platform for the digital assets will need to be registered at that level, and this is going to be a new actor, and the operators for the trading platforms will need to get registered by the national bank. Of course, if we don't mention about Kazakhstani exchange that has all of the licenses. And I want to draw your attention to this table. It clearly sets the scheme to regulate both digital assets and other assets, and the special attention is to be drawn to the fact that the procedures in IML will still be enforced, and there's going to be behavior-based supervision and the regulation in regards to ensuring the rights for those possessing digital assets. Could you please tell us about the challenges in regards to competences and personnel capacity building, because we need more lawyers, finances, and the experts in blockchain, drug tech, cybersecurity, so many new terms. Do you plan to have any requirements at the regulations level? Do you have any vision in regards to that matter? So, qualification and human resources and capacity building are the key factors ensuring introduction of the digital assets market and regulating that market. So the modern market has been developing very dynamically, and professional expertise is a element of need for any new financial institution. And now I would like to mention not only about the digital tools, but any other product. As it was demonstrated in Singapore and Switzerland, the key component is to have capacity building programs to ensure retraining of the personnel members, and we would like to rely upon AIFC because you do have the expert community who could contribute to disseminating information regarding the digital assets at the classical market, and there's going to be the professional standards for facilitation, as it was done in the UK, as it was done there, and we will have the transparent system for compliance and cybersecurity analysts dealing with the digital assets, and we also envisage to be supported by the international experts and the national development institutions who provide effective support towards the agency while developing legal and regulatory framework, and we will manage actually to have full-fledged capacity building program to train our experts. Thank you so much. The market is looking forward towards the implementation of the ideas that we were exposed to by the regulator, and next year there's going to be a shift in focusing the securities market. And besides your readiness that has to do with a legal framework enhancement, accompanying all of the innovations and introducing those processes, is something that really leads to serious hopes. Adil, the questions for you. We've seen that the largest exchanges have started tokenizing their assets, and when we discuss the matters and digital processes at the capital markets, everybody thinks about crypto exchange. You know, Maria Jamalovna named them as operators of services, you know, similar to trading. And to keep it simple, we talk about crypto exchanges, but we have to understand that today the issue is about the opportunities for the capital market and the opportunities for the traditional capital opportunities. So we have to understand how traditional institutions will respond to the behavior of the new players, and what do we see in the upcoming future. So what is the position of CASE? CASE has demonstrated an interest towards the digital assets, and my question is, what is your attitude towards the tokenization, such as issuing digital bonds, providing services for digital funds, and what is the level of preparedness and what vision as well as the plans CASE has in this regard? Thank you. Thank you, Shulpan, for your question. Well, taking a chance, I'd like to congratulate all of the participants to the Congress with your professional holiday and wish you success and prosperity. Responding to your question, I'd like to say Kazakhstan exchange, generally speaking, has a quite positive attitude towards the opportunities that will be introduced by the new law. And as the representatives of the infrastructure, the major component for us is to make sure that there is a chance to have investment ideas implemented in reality. Again, the ideas based on new technologies and the current infrastructural opportunities. And you've mentioned rightfully that those initiatives that are taking place globally, the clusters of crypto exchanges. But again, going back to the traditional exchanges, you know, then just a few exchanges having a chance to have digital assets operated with and having crypto assets introduced into the traditional business. Why? Because that's an interesting exercise, and you know, an idea of just launching the digital assets just for the sake of having that process launched. Yes, indeed, the technologies are interesting, they are diverse. However, you know, we have to satisfy the needs of the business. Should there any request come from the market, and as every single technology, the solutions have the customized philosophy, so we shouldn't be making the mistakes. So actually, as an exchange, what we did, we contributed together with the regulator while drafting the law, proposing the amendments, and at the high level, everything is something that could be interpreted as a very positive perspective. However, the devil is in detail. So we have to scrutinize the process, and we would like the market actors to be engaged as actively as possible while drafting the laws and bylaws. And again, from the point of view of the exchange, naming the roles of CASE, we have two roles. So the first one is a classical role of organizers for trading, and the second being the operator for digital assets. And we get ourselves prepared, and our intention is, in addition to training opportunities, to supported, non-supported, and to provide tokenization for the existing assets, or to issue new assets in tokens. And CASE has largely worked from the architectural solution standpoint, and we looked at the cases of success available at the market. Why? As many actors have contributed to the sandbox with the ideas that they have, and they're ready to introduce into the final version of the law. So that's something that we envisage, and we would like to have the full spectrum of tools available. Indeed, my vision would be for CASE to have mutual acknowledgement, and in order to do so, you need to have the agreements or MOUs with some crypto platforms in order to make sure that having the mutual acknowledgement of listing, and plus you would be able to place securities both in fiat and securities market. And by doing so, you would expand the spectrum of investors for the issuers. And I think that the exchange is to work thoroughly. Thank you so much. A very important comment. We looked at that perspective, but what we're leaving essential still as an infrastructure, as the operator of the infrastructure, we do have some comfort generated, the guarantees for stability and resilience, and we have to be sure in new instruments and infrastructure that we would like to offer the market, so that it doesn't jeopardize the trust that we have, but to have it supported. So the acknowledgement of any tool is to be treated through the prism of practicalities. Yes, indeed. That's a rightful concern. Voiced by the exchange regulator. Yes, you regulate the market of listing. However, we have to break the stereotypes, as there's a prejudice that crypto is something gray-colored, right? But believe me, I represent Skybridge DeFi. We do have this subordinate organization that has all of these licenses to organize STO, and now we are in a process of completing the transaction in STO, and I'd like to tell you that indeed that's a quite complex process, and crypto exchanges don't let outsiders, and they have pretty high requirements to issuers, requirements to ML, audit, all of the indicators that prove your expediency and payability, and now we are going through a very harsh due diligence at the moment. And of course, I realize that you do have your own concerns, and I assume that you will not partner with all of the crypto exchanges, but also only with those who have good reputation. And besides, tokenization indeed could lead to great opportunities in regards to split with bonds with large nominal, and with small number of tokens we could have better opportunities for small-sized investors. Yes, that's one of the cases that we are currently discussing. And we plan to address that as well. Thank you so much, Adil. And now the next question is for Yedel. We have a full understanding, for instance, if exchange can seamlessly to become a part of those new processes, the central depositarium as a place to store, as a place to ensure reporting, is experiencing a role not only as a service provider for the KASE, but also as an instrument of integration, and putting it all together under a framework of DoD and so on, creating the new digital assets and trading. And in this regard, Yedel, how Central Depository sees the future of your business in tokenization? Do you envisage to have your own DLT platform, or you would like to integrate with the international custodial blockchain services? So what is being done by your organization? Thank you, Shulpan. Well, as you said on your slide that you depict on the screen, so what is the difference of the traditional securities and digital assets is technologies. So seamlessness, capability to trade 24/7, an ability to fragment the securities, an ability to have immediate settlement, and the essence of the securities don't get changed, just the form gets changed and the technology gets changed. So in order to provide an opportunity for the actors of the market and for the market overall to use the opportunities, we looked together with the agency, with the exchange, and the participants were thought of not losing the decentralization opportunities from one standpoint, and from the other standpoint to make sure that there's a better trust towards the market, so that the investors are sure in their rights being protected well. And whilst we are forming the market, and the amendments to the legs and regs are now just being completed, we identified that it will be better to us not to try to copy the traditional model, the infrastructure of securities that is centralized under the central depository, and we would have the participants. We would rather have the new model for the digital assets in order not to have a bottleneck. Our solution proposed was that at the current stage we will provide a chance to these platforms that are going to be used for tokenization to exchange data and to have integrated with the database of the central depository. So the registration of the transactions will be made using those platforms, and we will provide our API channels with the great capacity in real time in order to exchange info with these platforms and to have the register based on the data provided by these platforms, so that we have an opportunity 24/7 to have a register subject to requests coming from the other parties concerned. And that model is the one that we could scale up, taking into account the current situation, and it is not jeopardizing the competitiveness, and the actors could develop their own blockchain. So the central depository is going to be a part of the system, right? Systems of having the registers, and it is going to be a trusted node for the traditional investors, because we are used to working through the central depository, and we trust it without losing the opportunities provided by the central depository. It won't be above it, but within the system. Yes, so we talked about operational fraud, and currently we identify that we're going to be exchanging the information through the API channels, and actually it is subject to the permit to be provided by the National Bank and the agency. And actually, the central depository is going to be available 24/7 for collecting the data to establish the registers, and we will provide those registers if the request comes. Thank you, Yedel. So based on the presentations by the three speakers, who have a great weight, actually we could say that the integration of putting the new digital elements of this decentralized market has been commenced, and it is a part of the traditional financial market in Kazakhstan. Now my question is to my colleagues representing the exchanges, the funds. So we don't have much time left. And in very simple terms, let's talk about the issue. What aspects for traditional markets will be changed the most upon the influence of the digital assets? This is the question to Sergey, Farhad, and Timur. And indeed, could you please brief us about that? So Sergey, please start. And what areas are we to expect the radical changes or breakthroughs? Yes, thank you, dearest friends, and I would like to congratulate you with the Day of National Currency. Actually, the current discussion looks in a way so that as if we are, taking a carriage and we're putting the reactive engine and just hold it, but nothing is going to change. It looks very interesting. So Maria mentioned about the traffic rules for the upcoming 5 years. Yes. Well, indeed, the blockchain is something that is going to be existing at every single computer. Well, indeed, the digital world is an integral part of our life. We could, acknowledge it or not acknowledge it, and so on. And our colleagues from Europe, keep saying that, the game is over. The digital world is not something that we can introduce. This is about survival, so we either have it or we just need to lead the markets, right? And the Netflix has had replaced the video cassettes, right? And nobody is interested in watching the video using those record players, correct? So actually, this is something that we try to study at the moment, and the way we could operate in the future. So let's sum up. For the retail investor, to have a trade 24/7. On the weekend, you could have a transaction. You could actually purchase a bit of securities, So for $1, we could have a portfolio of the sector, So the separated shares, and stocks, So actually, we're going to be having a very diverse structure of entire system and commission. It's not going to be cheaper, but anyway, the structure would be changed, so the market makers will make profit, and the type of the profit is going to also change. So what's going to change for the issuers, for the business, it's going to be simpler to attract funding, to raise funding, We have to approach the exchange, the brokers, have it registered by the regulator, and then prepare everything for the issue. 1 year later, there's going to be good tokens, There's going to be B2B operations. The token is audited, you just fill in the details, and then on a weekend you will have as much money as you wish to, and then you will raise money easily. Now for the issuers, a huge problem is to raise loans for millions of dollars. I'm not talking about the thousands of US dollars, and it will be very, very easy for the issuer, and the solution will be found very promptly, and the business will be exposed to wonderful opportunities. So actually, the expansion is the key. The new expansion is provided by the new issuers, and actually, what's going to happen to the industry, and what consequences we will have for the exchange, So 24/7 is to be insured, and if token gets issued, then we will have the liquidity moving forward towards the blockchain. And for brokers, everything is going to change in the future, the structure of the commission. We won't be able to make money, taking into account very modest commission that the public is raising, and the structure of profit is going to be different, market makers and the spread. So actually this business becomes the leader. So, we could operate using 3 currencies, and the way we operate while trade the U.S. bonds, and there's going to be entirely drastically different markets. So we don't have a very large choice. We're either following the digital trends, or we're going to be left alone in a traditional way of Netflix that is not in operation. So actually, we have no doubt that Kazakhstan is going to make a right choice. Thank you, Sergey. We are sharing this way forward. Farhad, my question is for you. So the role of the regulator is changing. So the digital world is a world where smart contracts get executed independently, and intermediate activity is algorithm-based. So what is the role of the broker? Can we keep and ensure the leadership of brokerage, whether there's going to be a need in brokers without having a license, a classical one? So what is your vision as a leader of the traditional market? Could you please comment more? Thank you so much for this question. Frankly, it's hard to respond to these questions. What if, what would be if, so actually conjunctive mood isn't something that we could use in this case. And actually, while communicating with the banking sector, our understanding remains to a certain extent traditional, and whatever gets established at the AIFC, taking into account the decentralized system and computation models popping up to the market. That's everything that we have to take into account. And the brokerage, unfortunately, that doesn't have an access. You know, we are those who have the window shopping. You know, we're looking inside the restaurant and the dishes that you're consuming, but we don't have a chance to try it on, you know, but, you know, we are looking for the back door to enter the restaurant. Well, you know, non-banking subordinate organizations, you know, could use their front door, you know, they're called sandbox, you know, and you have to squeeze in. Well, anyway, that was a joke. So we would like the market to change drastically. At this moment, I know that Maria Zhamalovna and the regulator overall have done a lot to legalize those types of activities and opening a window to the banking holdings. So we're looking forward. So we would like to enter the restaurant. Well, today during the plenary session, I realized that the paradigm has changed. The attitude is changing. Perhaps the securities market isn't going to be a stepdaughter of the banks, you know, and the banks are the daughters, not the stepdaughters. So actually, Timur, my question is for you. Do you see any demand for tokenized commodities at this very moment? And are you ready to have such services integrated in the upcoming future? Thank you so much, Olpan, for your questions. So I'd like to congratulate you with the upcoming national holiday, which is to salute the national currency. Actually, the foreign exchange is now pretty favorable. You know, we are having good tendencies in regards to exchange market development. So in regards to the retail, you know, yes, there's a potential. It's pretty limited, but anyway, pretty positive. So we talk about those entities who would use 8510, they would deal with the crypto assets, and they would like to be legalized. They would like to be protected from the reporting standpoint, from the professional actors that have to act through the regulated framework. And seamless transactions are desirable as well. And the actors who will be able to ensure that is going to be in an avant-garde of the process. And as Farhad said, welcome. Whatever the banking subordinates are unable to do, we'll be able to do that. Yeah, sure, we will just give our clients out to our competitors, you know, full-heartedly, with great enthusiasm. So anyway, Farhad has mentioned about that. And together with the Agency for Financial Monitoring, we may not purchase crypto assets. So far, we don't have a right to have smart contracts and ETF with the cryptocurrency. If there is a derivative, yeah, theoretically speaking, that's okay and potentially possible. So, and actually, for those who act under AIFC jurisdiction without subordinate under the regulator, they could actually not have it, and we have the legs and Rex vacuum. And again, following the new law, we hope that that's going to be ensured. There's going to be the 3 classes of the digital assets, and the 2 classes is something that we have intentions to operate. And yes, indeed, together with the clients, we have looked at the spectrum of products, but it's at the moment the spectrum is pretty limited. So what we would like is to have the similarities to Singapore, SGS as a regulator, approved and verified their act for payment services, and within that act they could issue the tokenized bonds. So AFC is not an alternative to traditional instruments. That's a digital evolution, and we have to eventually come to that outcome. The same issues that are typical for securities is something that we use as a fundamentals, and the new law on securities and tokenization has provisions on separating mezzanine and the rest of the operations, but at the same time, the verification for SP is not available at the moment, so there's no correlation to the ethics. If there's security, then we would have the cluster of investors being able to purchase them together with the bonds and so on and so forth. So briefly, that's all that I wanted to share. Thanks. Thank you so much, Timur. That's. It makes an impression, once the subordinates or the banks complain about their hard life, But for those who are admitted to a wide spectrum of operations, have a wide spectrum of actions to be taken. So actually, we touched upon just a small piece of issues, and we talked about how this could be arranged, but we may not ignore these processes, and the digital assets is something that is surrounding us, and we shouldn't be just closing the eyes. If we do, then we will be left behind. Thank you so much full-heartedly for such an extensive presentations. The time is off, but I think that we have an opportunity for a Q&A session. Azamat Jaldosbekov, regretfully, I didn't hear the answer to the fundamental question. So the benefits of the digital assets is something conditional, so those are the traditional instruments, but with some modifications. So the preferences in custody and costs and so on, but that's a different story. So my question, so digital assets, as it was rightfully said by Timur and Farhad, is just, a paper, a wrapping paper. But the question is, the progress in digital assets is something that gets associated with monetary system and its readiness for that. In order to have immediate transfer of digital financial assets, you gotta have an infrastructure enabling to transfer money. Yes, indeed, we have 24/7 retail banking, but we don't have any 24/7 corporate banking. So how are you going to manage the transfers if we have the issue of moving the money from one pocket to the other? You may not just moving it around without having the infrastructure. Thank you so much for your question. So for the first time ever, we received the time to work and discuss and operating at the capital markets, and the two sessions and the previous congresses and the even fintech the summit that we attended yesterday, those are the platforms dedicated to blockchain application in payment. And we have to have a clear understanding that indeed this is comprised of two aspects. We do have the payment sector, and we do have, again, thanks to tokenization and attracting the securities, we do have the banking and payment issue that has been sorted out, and many banks, thanks to being a part of sandboxes, had the mutual operation for the cryptocurrencies and fiat. And indeed, if not in full-fledged manner, they've started working partly with using the new technologies. And I don't think that that's a matter that has to do with the money flow and the moving the money from one pocket to the other, but the expansion of different types of assets. So far, I think that we will demonstrate the results in that regard. Azamat, when I was trying to understand it from a practical standpoint, yes, indeed, the banks are participants to legs and rates sandbox, and fiat is going to convert it to digital money, then it's going to be converted to USDT, and then it will be used for trading, while transferring the money to any account at your commercial bank, you may digitize it, and then you could convert it into USDT, and then you could trade it freely. So fiat, then digital tenge, and then exchange, simple as that. And then the digital currency is going to be operated 24/7. Mic is not used, interpretation is not possible. Thank you.
Нет, по-моему, уже эти вопросы.
No, as far as I'm concerned, there was a solution found. You could actually have a reversed custodian reporting. Yes, we have the money distribution that's sorted out. Yes, yeah, both of you are right, indeed. And the banks will deal with these matters, and we have to understand that the bank is going to be having an account at the national bank, and then the national bank will convert the fiat money into the digital tenge in any amount. Interpretation is not possible. Mic is not being used. Thank you.
Нет, на самом деле не означает.
Well, indeed, this doesn't mean that the blockchain and regulation are something contradicting to each other. Well, the matter is that we are to regulate whatever's been decentralized, and in fact, through the mechanisms that are being developed, that's possible. And again, our subsidiary company, Scriptage DeFi, I cannot promote the moderator. I need to make a reference. We do have two licenses, the one for STO and the second one is Forex license. And the Forex license enables our clients to have cryptocurrency at any time. So not the Forex exchange, but the overall exchange, fiat to digital. Interpretation is not possible. Mic is not being used.
Не совсем понятно. То есть на самом деле это же как раз.
So indeed, we talk about having a chance for the AFC to settle the account. And yes, indeed, you could use it for conversion. In fact, it was repeatedly mentioned today that it's not Kazakhstan's market for the financial assets, but the entire global digital financial market is being established, and it's less than 3% of the traditional market. We have to admit it. In any way, the growth is expansional, and we cannot ignore it. And these processes, indeed, is something that is not mature. There are no ideal solutions, but in the upcoming future, the solutions will be found. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if you are interested in more details, please don't hesitate to ask us and my colleagues. We have listened to really great proposals. Thank you so much, and once again, congratulate you with the holiday.